Have you ever pulled up your ginger at the end of the season, only to find pathetic, tiny little nubs that look absolutely nothing like the massive, juicy roots you buy at the grocery store? What if I told you that you are just one simple step away from growing ginger so huge it is the size of your actual forearm? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are talking about a backyard farming miracle that sounds almost too good to be true. I am going to show you why you need to thoroughly soak your ginger field today, and then immediately cover it up with a protective blanket. Yes, a blanket. By the end of this video, you will know the exact unusual secret that forces ginger to explode in size. And believe me, once you hear how this works, you are going to want to run straight out to your garden. Let us get into it. To really understand why this trick is so magical, we have to look at where ginger actually comes from. Ginger is a tropical plant. It evolved in lush, humid rainforests, where the soil is incredibly rich, slightly acidic, and constantly covered by fallen leaves and organic matter. In its natural habitat, ginger never has to deal with bare, baked dirt or scorching direct sunlight hitting its roots. When we try to grow ginger in our normal backyard gardens, we often treat it like a regular vegetable. We plant it in bare soil, we water it a little bit, and we hope for the best. But ginger is different. The part we eat, the rhizome, grows horizontally just barely below the surface of the dirt. If that top layer of dirt gets hot, dry, or hard, the ginger simply stops growing. It goes into survival mode. To get those giant arm-sized roots, we have to recreate that lush, covered, tropical jungle floor right in our own backyards. So let us dive right into the magic of the ginger blanket. You might be wondering what on earth I mean by putting a blanket on your garden. I am talking about laying down a thick, heavy layer of organic mulch right over your ginger beds. But why is this so incredibly important for this specific plant? Well, think about how you feel on a cold night without a warm cover. You shiver and you freeze, and your body gets stressed. Ginger feels exactly the same way when its shallow roots are exposed to harsh weather. This plant grows horizontally right near the very surface of the soil. If that top layer of dirt gets baked by the hot summer sun, it turns into a rock-hard brick. And let me tell you, ginger roots absolutely refuse to grow in hard-baked dirt. They need soft, yielding, and highly workable earth to expand into those massive, arm-sized chunks we all want to harvest. By laying down a thick blanket of straw or dried leaves, you are locking in a perfect microclimate. You are creating a soft and humid spa for your plants. A lot of beginners think mulch is just for making a garden look pretty, but that is a massive myth. For ginger, this blanket is the literal difference between a harvest the size of your thumb and a harvest the size of a baseball bat. It acts as an ultimate shield against rapid evaporation. It keeps the blazing sun off the delicate topsoil, ensuring everything stays loose. But before you put that blanket down, there is a crucial first step. You must give your ginger field a massive, deep soaking. Now, let us address a very common misunderstanding right here. There is a huge myth floating around the gardening community that ginger will instantly rot if you give it too much water. People are terrified of overwatering it. While it is true that ginger hates sitting in a stagnant puddle of cold mud, during its active growing phase in the heat of summer, it is an absolute water hog. It drinks rapidly. If you want giant roots, a light sprinkle from your garden hose is simply not going to cut it. You need to water the soil deeply until it is completely saturated, all the way down to the deepest root fibers. Imagine a dry sponge. If you just miss the top of the sponge, the inside stays bone dry and useless. You have to submerge that sponge to get it fully functional. Your garden soil is exactly the same. You need to provide a heavy, heavy watering session. This deep soaking prepares the earth, filling every tiny air pocket with life-giving moisture. This is the moisture your ginger will rely on to swell up and expand. If you skip this heavy watering and just throw a blanket over dry dirt, you are basically sealing in a drought, which is the exact opposite of what we want to achieve. Once you have completely flooded the bed and the water has soaked in, it is time for the blanket. The timing here is everything. You want to apply your mulch immediately after that heavy watering. Why? Because you want to trap that moisture in the earth before the sun has a chance to steal it back. This brings us to the incredible power of moisture retention. When you leave garden soil bare and exposed, the sun and the wind act like giant blow dryers. They suck the water right out of the ground within hours. But when you apply a thick layer of straw, hay, or shredded leaves, you stop that evaporation dead in its tracks. The moisture hits the ceiling of your mulch blanket and falls right back down into the dirt. It is a continuous, self-watering cycle underneath that cover. I have seen gardens where the topsoil stays perfectly moist and crumbly for over a week after a single good watering, all thanks to a proper blanket. Because the soil stays constantly damp but not muddy, the ginger roots never experience the stress of drought. They do not have to pause their growth to conserve energy. They just keep pushing outward, getting fatter and longer every single day. This constant, perfectly balanced humidity is the ultimate secret weapon for creating an environment where arm-sized ginger is not just possible, but completely guaranteed. Let us talk specifically about temperature control because this is another superpower of the ginger blanket. Ginger is a plant that absolutely loves warmth, but it severely hates getting burned. It is a very delicate balance. During the peak days of midsummer, the direct sunshine hitting bare dirt can raise the soil temperature to completely dangerous levels. We are talking about soil so hot, it literally cooks the tender little root tips of your plants. When those root tips get burned, the plant shuts down its lateral growth. But look at what happens when you introduce a thick organic blanket. The mulch acts as an incredible insulator. It absorbs the harsh, beating rays of the sun, keeping the soil underneath completely cool and comfortable. Conversely, when the temperatures drop rapidly at night, that same blanket holds the daytime heat inside the earth, preventing a sudden, shocking chill. It keeps the temperature stable and consistent 24 hours a day. Think of it like a high-quality thermos that keeps your coffee hot and your iced tea cold. Ginger roots are divas. They want the temperature to stay exactly in their comfort zone all the time. By stabilizing the soil heat with a heavy layer of mulch, you eliminate environmental stress. And a stress-free ginger plant is a plant that pours all of its energy into producing gigantic, heavy rhizomes. Now, you might be asking, what exactly should I use for this blanket? One of the absolute best materials you can use is clean, seed-free straw. Straw is fantastic because it is hollow and lightweight. It creates thousands of tiny air pockets above your soil, which enhances its insulating power dramatically. When you spread straw around your ginger stems, it mats down just enough to block the sun, but it stays fluffy enough to let oxygen flow through to the roots. Remember, roots need to breathe just as much as they need to drink. If you smother them with something completely airtight, like heavy plastic, you will actually kill the plant. Straw strikes the perfect balance. Another brilliant option is shredded autumn leaves. If you saved leaves from last fall, run them over with a lawnmower and pile them on. As these shredded leaves slowly break down, they release a slow, steady drip of natural carbon and trace minerals right into the ginger root zone. It is like feeding your plants a daily vitamin supplement while also protecting them. Just make sure whatever material you choose is free of chemical weed killers. You want organic, natural materials that will eventually decompose and turn into beautiful, rich compost for next year. Building the soil while growing massive ginger is a double victory for any backyard farmer. Let us explore another massive benefit of the blanket method, the absolute suppression of weeds. Nothing ruins a beautiful ginger harvest faster than an army of aggressive weeds. Because ginger roots grow so close to the surface, they are in direct competition with every single weed that sprouts nearby. Weeds are greedy. They will steal the water you just poured in, and they will completely drain the soil of nitrogen and potassium. If you let weeds take over, your ginger will be starved and tiny. Now, some people think they can just pull the weeds by hand, but here is the danger with that. Because ginger roots are so shallow, when you yank a big weed out of the ground, you often tear the delicate ginger roots right along with it. You end up doing more harm than good. But when you lay down a thick, heavy blanket of mulch, you block out 100% of the sunlight from reaching the weed seeds hidden in the dirt. Without sunlight, those weed seeds simply cannot germinate. They stay asleep. You will practically eliminate the need for weeding your ginger patch. This means the ginger gets to hog all the nutrients, all the water, and all the growing space for itself. It is a completely unfair advantage, And it is exactly what you want if your goal is to grow truly monstrous, arm-sized ginger. We need to talk about the hidden world beneath the blanket, the microbial life. This is where the real magic happens, the stuff you cannot see with the naked eye. Bare soil that is baked by the sun is essentially dead soil. The good bacteria, the beneficial fungi, and the earthworms will all flee deep underground to escape the heat and dryness. But the moment you lay down a thick, moist layer of organic mulch, you send an invitation to the entire soil food web. The area directly under the blanket becomes a dark, damp, safe haven for millions of microbes. Earthworms will swim up to the surface right beneath the mulch to feed on the decomposing straw or leaves. As they eat, they leave behind worm castings, which is quite literally the most powerful, nutrient-dense natural fertilizer on planet Earth. These earthworms also tunnel through the top few inches of dirt, keeping it aerated and perfectly loose for the ginger rhizomes to expand into. The beneficial fungi will form massive microscopic networks that attach to the ginger roots, helping them drink water and absorb minerals far more efficiently than they ever could on their own. By simply adding a blanket, you are not just covering dirt, you are building a bustling, highly active underground city that works around the clock to feed and nurture your ginger plants. Let us take a moment to understand exactly how ginger rhizomes actually physically grow. This will help you see why the blanket is mandatory. Ginger does not grow a deep taproot straight down like a carrot. Instead, it crawls sideways. As the main plant grows, it shoots out new little knobs horizontally right at the soil line. Sometimes these knobs even poke their heads above the dirt. If these exposed ginger knobs hit dry, hot air, the skin hardens and thickens instantly. It forms a tough bark to protect itself from drying out. Once that tough bark forms, that specific section of the ginger essentially stops expanding. Its growth is permanently stunted. However, if you have a deep blanket of mulch piled high around the stems, those new growing knobs push out into the dark, moist, highly humid environment of the mulch itself. Because they are protected from the harsh air, their skin stays soft, thin, and highly pliable. This soft skin allows the rhizome to just keep swelling, stretching, and getting fatter week after week. The plant feels safe to keep expanding outward. This is the exact mechanical reason why uncovered ginger stays small and tough, while blanketed ginger becomes completely massive, tender, and incredibly juicy. You are literally tricking the plant into thinking it is safely buried deep underground. How thick should this blanket actually be? This is a question that trips up a lot of beginner gardeners. If you put down a layer of straw that is only half an inch thick, the sun will pierce right through it, the wind will blow it away, and you will get zero benefits. On the other hand, if you bury the entire plant under 2 feet of heavy, wet grass clippings, you might suffocate the stems and cause them to rot. The sweet spot, the absolute perfect thickness for a ginger blanket, is about 3 to 4 inches of loose, fluffy material. When you first lay it down, it might look like a mountain, but remember that gravity and rain will quickly compress it. 4 inches of fluffy straw will quickly pack down into a solid 2-inch protective mat. This thickness is heavy enough to block the sunlight and trap the moisture completely, but light enough to let the ginger shoots easily push their way up through it. As the summer progresses, you should check your blanket regularly. Organic materials break down over time. By midsummer, that thick layer might have thinned out to almost nothing. When you see the dirt starting to peek through, it is time to grab more straw and tuck the ginger in all over again. Maintaining that consistent thickness is the key to steady, uninterrupted growth. What about feeding the ginger through the blanket? This is a very cool trick. Just because you have a thick layer of mulch covering your soil does not mean you cannot fertilize your plants. In fact, the blanket makes fertilizing even more effective. Ginger is a heavy feeder. It loves rich nutrients. While the breaking down of the mulch provides a slow drip of food, you will want to give it a boost to get those arm-sized results. The best way to do this is with liquid fertilizers, like compost tea or a diluted organic fish emulsion. When you pour a liquid fertilizer over your mulch blanket, an amazing thing happens. The blanket acts like a giant filter and a sponge. Instead of the fertilizer washing away quickly over the top of the hard dirt, the mulch catches it. The liquid slowly drips through the layers of straw or leaves, gently soaking into the soil directly at the root zone over several hours. It prevents nutrient runoff completely. Plus, the moisture trapped by the blanket ensures that the fertilizer does not dry into harsh, salty crusts that can burn the roots. The nutrients stay suspended in the damp soil, perfectly available for the ginger to drink up instantly. It is like setting up an automatic slow-release feeding station right over your crop. Let us debunk another massive misconception regarding the ginger growing season. You will often read online that you should let your ginger dry out completely between waterings to prevent disease. People treat it like a cactus. This is terrible advice if you want a massive harvest. While ginger does need a dry period at the very, very end of the season, right before you harvest it, during the hot months of active summer growth, drying out is your worst enemy. If the soil completely dries out, the delicate microscopic root hairs that absorb water literally die off. When you finally water it again, the plant has to waste valuable time and energy regrowing those tiny root hairs before it can even take a drink. This starts a vicious cycle of start and stop growth. The plant gets stressed, and the rhizomes stay small. The blanket method completely solves this. By checking the soil beneath the blanket with your finger, you will find it stays consistently damp, like a wrung-out sponge. You never let it turn to bone-dry dust, and you never let it become a swamp. You maintain a constant, steady humidity. This uninterrupted access to perfect moisture is why blanketed ginger grows so aggressively fast compared to ginger grown in bare, neglected soil. You also need to observe what is happening above the ground. The health of the ginger leaves is a direct reflection of what is happening under the blanket. When ginger is stressed from heat or lack of water, you will see the edges of the long green leaves turn brown and crispy. The leaves will fold inward during the hottest part of the day to hide from the sun. If you see this, your plant is crying out for help. But when you use the heavy water and blanket method, the transformation is incredible. The leaves stay a deep, rich, vibrant green from the base all the way to the very tips. They stand up tall, wide open, and catch as much sunlight as possible. Because the roots are cool, moist, and happy under their protective cover, the plant can pump massive amounts of water up into the stems to cool the leaves down. A healthy, fully hydrated canopy of leaves acts like a giant array of solar panels. The more sunlight these healthy leaves can process through photosynthesis, the more sugars and starches they pump back down into the root system. This massive transfer of energy is exactly what swells the rhizomes into those gigantic arm-sized monsters. Happy leaves equal massive roots. Another fantastic benefit of the blanket method is how it handles heavy summer storms. If you have bare soil in your garden and a massive thunderstorm rolls through, the heavy, pounding raindrops act like tiny bombs. They blast the delicate topsoil away, exposing the shallow ginger roots to the harsh air. Even worse, heavy rain can create a river that washes all your expensive compost and nutrients right out of the garden bed. But when you have a thick blanket of straw or leaves in place, it acts as a high-tech shock absorber. The heavy rain hits the soft mulch and completely shatters. The energy of the raindrop is absorbed by the blanket. The water then gently trickles down through the material and slowly soaks into the soil without moving a single grain of dirt. Your precious topsoil stays exactly where it belongs, and the shallow ginger roots are completely protected from erosion. Furthermore, the blanket prevents the splashing of soil-borne diseases up onto the ginger leaves. Many plant diseases live in the dirt and only infect the plant when muddy water splashes up during a rainstorm. The mulch creates a clean barrier, keeping the leaves spotless, highly functional, and perfectly healthy all season long. Let us look at a specific example of how different mulches affect the final outcome. Imagine two ginger farmers. Farmer A uses no blanket, just bare dirt. Farmer B uses a thick blanket of partially rotted leaves and straw. By August, Farmer A is out there with a hose every single day, trying to soften the rock-hard dirt. His plants are yellowing, and the roots are small, hard, and extremely fibrous. They are tough to chew and not very flavorful. Farmer B, however, waters deeply only once a week. Under his blanket, the soil is black, crumbly, and teeming with worms. His ginger rhizomes are swelling so much they are literally lifting the mulch off the ground. When you cut into Farmer B's ginger, it is incredibly crisp, incredibly tender, and dripping with aromatic juices. The difference is night and day. The blanket does not just increase the size of the ginger, it completely transforms the culinary quality. Because the ginger never struggled for water, it did not need to develop tough, woody fibers to survive. It grew fast and easily, resulting in a premium, gourmet-quality spice that you would pay a fortune for at a high-end grocery store. This is the real reward for your effort. We should also touch upon pest deterrents. Now, ginger is generally a very tough plant that bugs tend to avoid because of its strong, spicy oils. However, stressed plants always attract problems. When ginger is suffering in dry, hard soil, its immune system drops, making it susceptible to root nematodes and certain types of borers. But a healthy, robust plant protected by a thick mulch blanket naturally fights off these pests. Additionally, certain types of mulch can actually repel unwanted insects. For example, if you mix a little bit of cedar mulch or strong-smelling pine needles into your straw blanket, the natural aromatic oils act as a fantastic bug repellent. Furthermore, the dark, moist environment created by the blanket is highly attractive to predatory insects. Things like ground beetles and certain beneficial spiders love to live in the mulch. These guys are the lions and tigers of the insect world. They patrol your ginger bed at night, hunting down and eating the bad bugs that might want to take a bite out of your precious crop. By laying down the blanket, you are essentially hiring an army of tiny security guards to protect your harvest, completely free of charge. As the season begins to wind down and autumn approaches, the role of the blanket shifts just a little bit. As the days get shorter and the nights get cooler, your ginger plant will start to signal that it is almost time for harvest. The leaves might start to naturally yellow just a bit. This is normal. During this late stage, the blanket acts as an incredible frost protector. A sudden, early frost can instantly kill the green tops of your ginger and damage the rhizomes near the surface. But a thick layer of mulch holds onto the warmth of the earth, providing a crucial buffer against those first chilly nights. It buys you an extra 2 or 3 weeks of growing time, and let me tell you, those last few weeks are vital. That is when the ginger plant pulls all the remaining energy out of its tall green leaves and shoves it straight down into the rhizome, causing one final, massive growth spurt. By keeping the roots warm and safe from frost with your blanket, you maximize this final swelling phase, ensuring every single root reaches its absolute maximum potential size before you pull it out of the ground. Finally, the day of the harvest arrives, and this is where the blanket method gives you its ultimate reward. If you grew your ginger in bare, baked dirt, harvesting is a nightmare. You have to take a heavy shovel, jump on it, and pry the rock-hard earth apart, risking slicing your precious ginger roots right in half. It is back-breaking labor. But if you followed the heavy water and blanket method, harvest day is an absolute dream. Because the soil underneath that mulch has been protected, kept moist, and worked by millions of earthworms all season long, it is incredibly light and fluffy. You literally do not even need a shovel. You just pull back the blanket of straw, grab the thick green stems of the ginger plant near the base, and give a gentle, steady pull. The earth simply yields. The massive, golden, arm-sized rhizomes slide right out of the soft dirt effortlessly, completely intact and absolutely beautiful. The smell of fresh, spicy ginger hits the air, and you realize that all that simple preparation was worth its weight in gold. You just brush off the loose soil, and you are ready to bring your incredible harvest straight into the kitchen. Let us quickly talk about what to do with the field after you pull those giant roots out. Do you just throw the blanket away? Absolutely not. That blanket is black gold. Once you have harvested your giant ginger, that layer of straw, leaves, and worm castings should be mixed right down into the topsoil. Or, you can just leave it sitting right there on the surface over the winter. As the snow and rain fall, that organic matter will completely break down, releasing all its stored nutrients back into the earth. It is like preparing a giant feast for next year's crop. By spring, that garden bed will have the most luxurious, nutrient-dense soil on your entire property. You are building a sustainable, incredibly fertile system. The heavy water and blanket trick is not just a one-time hack for big ginger. It is a fundamental principle of regenerative backyard farming. You are working with nature, protecting the soil life, and creating an environment of pure abundance. Once you see the results of this method, you will start putting protective blankets on your tomatoes, your peppers, and your garlic. It is a philosophy that completely transforms the way you approach your entire garden. It is also worth noting that this technique scales perfectly no matter how much space you have. If you are growing a massive 100-foot row of ginger on a small farm, the blanket method saves you hundreds of dollars in irrigation costs and fertilizer runoff. But even if you are just growing ginger in a few large fabric pots on your back patio, the exact same rules apply. Potted soil dries out incredibly fast, even faster than ground soil. A heavy soaking, followed by a thick 2-inch blanket of straw in your pots will absolutely shock you with the results. You will dump those pots out at the end of the season and find them completely choked with massive, pristine ginger roots. The principles of moisture retention, temperature regulation, and soil biology do not care about the size of your garden. They only care that the environment is correct. So, do not think you need a massive plot of land to achieve these arm-sized results. You just need to respect the plant's tropical origins, give it the deep hydration it craves, and tuck it in tightly so it feels completely at home. So, to wrap up the mechanics of this amazing secret, it all comes down to consistency. The combination of the deep, saturating drink and the immediate application of the thick, organic blanket creates an unbroken chain of ideal growing conditions. There are no cycles of extreme drought followed by floods. There are no sudden spikes in soil temperature. There is only a steady, perfect, humid, and nutrient-rich spa environment. This consistency is the golden key. Plants, especially tropical ones like ginger, thrive on predictable, stable conditions. When they do not have to fight the environment just to survive, they turn into absolute monsters of production. You are essentially removing every single obstacle that stands in the way of their growth. Next time you look at your ginger plants, ask yourself if they are exposed and struggling, or if they are protected and thriving. If you see bare dirt, you know exactly what you need to do. Grab the hose, turn it on full blast, and go get that blanket. Your plants will thank you by giving you a harvest that will completely blow your mind. And there you have it, the ultimate turning point for your backyard garden. Who would have thought that the secret to growing massive, arm-sized ginger comes down to thoroughly soaking the earth and simply tucking your plants in with a protective blanket? It seems so incredibly basic, yet it completely changes the game. By trapping that deep moisture, regulating the soil temperature, and inviting all those amazing earthworms to the party, you are literally forcing your ginger to explode in size. It is a true miracle of nature, and the payoff is huge, tender, juicy ginger roots that will make your neighbors completely jealous. I hope you take this secret out to your garden and try it right now. Thank you so much for watching and spending your time with me today. If you want to keep learning these incredible backyard farming secrets, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Now, I have a question for you. Have you ever tried mulching your ginger before? Or are you going to try the blanket method for the very first time this year? Let me know down in the comments below. I read every single one. Happy gardening, and I will see you in the next video.